after announcing a new framework that would limit the scale of AI chips and their sale outside of the U.S. Joining us now is Bernstein analyst Stacy Rasgon. Stacy, always good to have you. What do you make of these newest regulations and the impact perhaps on some of the companies you cover, in particular Nvidia?
Yeah, it's a little hard to judge impact right now, but we can talk about like what they're doing. So they're putting constraints on the amount of compute capacity that can be shipped out of the U.S. to a certain number of countries. There's 18 countries where they're sort of like favored nation status, kind of business as usual. Customers in those countries can pretty much build as much as they want in those countries. There's a set of countries, China and Russia and other ones that are under like arms embargo where you're not allowed to ship anything. None of those things are really any change. It's in the middle, the other countries where the interesting sort of dynamics happen. Those countries have very sharp limits on how much compute capacity can get put in them. Unless the customers themselves sort of agree to conform to certain standards, basically, be good citizens and the like. And if that's the case, then those customers can build in those countries, but those customers will be limited by how much compute capacity they can deploy. So if you kind of run through it, it's probably manageable for now, but my guess would be as we go along over the next years, these constraints in general are probably unlikely to loosen, right? We're sort of in an arms race with some other actors in the world, and these constraints in general are likely to tighten up. And in general, that sort of thing it's not great, right? I think right now the overall demand for this stuff is such that this can probably be worked through. And like I said, it does seem like it's workable, but it remains to be seen how these dynamics will play out as we go forward, and whether and how these different kinds of constraints continue to get tightened. And now we have the new administration coming in, which throws a whole new.
I know that correct, right? I mean, well, are your expectations they're going to maintain the rules that have been put in place?
Yeah, I don't. The companies that have been impacted, Nvidia and some others, have sort of been going at the new administration to try to to advocate for themselves. And I got to be honest, I kind of understand why the Biden administration did this. But at the same time, doing it a week before the the administration change, it feels a little shaky. So we'll see what the Trump administration does. But I want to say I'm not sure that the incoming administration. I mean, in general, this idea that we need to be tough on these other areas and we need to be U.S. first. I mean, these are things that I think the new administration is going to want. So I don't know whether or not they will be pulling these. There's some aspects of this that maybe they're not going to like, but my guess is in general, over time, the sanctions probably never get looser in general. They'll probably continue to get tighter.
How do you explain to folks why you think the administration did this?
Well, I mean, it's their last chance to do something like this. And again, the general idea, like trying to control what's out there from a national security standpoint, I understand the rationale. I'm not sure I necessarily totally agree with it, but I understand it. This is their last chance to do it. And again, they're going to force the new administration, if they want to do something about it, to do something about it. But they put a stake in the ground one way or the other with 1 week to go.
Stacy, today's highest performance chips are tomorrow's lower performance chips. I mean, how does that end up working? Is it always just that we want to stay ahead, so one day they'll be able to get these chips, or not?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think when you go through the regulations from yesterday, and we did it, it's preliminary, but when you read through it, as they're written, like I said, it doesn't seem like it's draconian as people. I think when some of the news stories on this came out last week, people were really, really worried that they wouldn't be able to ship anything, or that the amount that they would be able to ship in general would be very, very curtailed. If you look at the favored nation countries, they're the major ones where a lot of this is going, and the U.S. guys can build as much as they need here in the U.S. and they have leeway to build outside of the U.S. to a fairly large degree. So when you sort of read through it, they weren't necessarily as draconian. They were fairly severe. Don't get me wrong. I was a little surprised when the news flow started to come up, but they weren't as completely draconian as maybe people had feared they might have been. And so, but this sort of stuff just drives volatility. And let's be honest. When the new administration comes in, it's going to be volatility every day. I've said this before, but when Trump was president last time, I'm spending every morning waking up. The first thing I do is check Twitter to see what the policy of the day is. So we'll probably be going back to some of that. Volatility in general is going to be higher.